I find that usually just about the time that I am ready to give up on my client and I think, okay, this is it. Like, I cannot even help you anymore. Like, you have dug yourself into the biggest hole ever, and I can't, there's nothing else I can do for you. That is usually about 5 minutes after that, is usually when they turn the corner. So let me help you sort of get the picture of how this actually works, because this has happened so many times. People always ask me this question, like, how long is it going to take, or when are they going to get it? And this is what I've seen the pattern over and over and over again. In my practice, in my private practice, we're set up to help whole family systems. So the way that works is we usually give the person with the addiction a counselor. Historically, that's me. And we give the family a counselor. That's like my other people, Scott or Kim or Campbell. And we work as a team to help families. We call it lawyering. And I always say, like, I'm the defense attorney, because usually the way it works is my person, because usually the addicted person has done some bad things, and it is my job to help them dig out of the hole. And so when I first start seeing them, I start this process of understanding them and building trust and building rapport, and naturally, as part of this process, there's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of trial and error, and I'm totally cool with that. I get that. Like, they have to go through and check off what's going to work and what's not going to work and figure these things out, which doesn't bother me at all. But it is a little bit similar to the family, because you're on this like roller coaster with them, right? And they do good for a while and you get your hopes up, and then not so good for a while. And then they do good for a while and you're excited again, and then not so good for a while. Meanwhile, as all this is going on, it's my job to sort of not just guide them, because that's a lot of what I do is I guide them, but a big piece of what I do is sort of have their back with their family and all the messes that they've got going on in their life. And so, we'll have to have these family sessions, and I go in and I'm like, okay, like, I know he's like not doing great, but we did this and he's talking about this and he did this. And so I'm just like giving all the evidence that I can give to kind of have their back and help their family see that they really are trying. And this usually goes on for some months until we get to this point where one of my family counselors comes to me and says, hey, can we have a family session for so-and-so family or client or whatever? And I'm like, when they say this, it's usually because my person's done something else, like really not good, and the family is really like at their breaking point. And I usually, when I get to the point that I'm like, dude, I got nothing else. Like, I don't want to have another family session because nothing is going to happen except my client and I are going to go in there and get found guilty, basically. And like, there's nothing that I can even say at this point to defend them, because I've done like co-signed for them so many times that my credibility is ruined at this point. And honestly, when it gets to this point, I'm like doubting my own self. I feel like I failed them. I feel like maybe this really doesn't work, even though I come on here and I sound really confident. Almost every case that I work gets to a point where I think this isn't going to work. And I'm literally, when I find myself saying to my family counselors, like, I got nothing, like, I got nothing else to help. I don't even know what to say anymore. Usually 5 minutes after that, that's when they'll get it, and like really get it, like for good, like they get it. And I don't know why, but that seems to be the pattern. It actually reminds me of this client I had a couple years back named Jeff. Now, when I first started seeing Jeff, he was kind of quiet guy, really shy, pretty introverted, but he was like a good guy. He was a musician. He played in this like Christian band, and that's how he met his wife. He had a wife and he had 2 sons. And so I started seeing Jeff, and at first when I would talk to Jeff, it felt like all he would tell me was what he thought he should say, like, like just tell me like all the right answers. But it was really, I figured out really more than just like, I'm just telling my counselor the right answers because I'm, trying to fool her. Really, it's like he wouldn't even connect with his own feelings or opinions about things. Like, he would always be telling himself, like, I should be stronger. I should do this. I should do that. And because he wouldn't acknowledge his own feelings and stuff, that was like the thing that kept him falling back in the drug use. Now, Jeff's drug use was no joke, okay? Like, this guy was a good guy. Like, he was super sweet and quiet and shy, but he would like abuse anything. When I was like getting his substance abuse history, he was telling me all the things he abused. I'm like, you abuse that? Like, no one abuses that. Why are you even abusing that? Like, that doesn't even do anything. I mean, this guy would just like abuse aspirin or something. I don't know. I was like, oh my God, Jeff. And I mean, he was such a good guy, and he would come and he would tell me how he just really wanted to be a good husband. He really wanted to be a good father. And I knew like he meant this in his heart, and he would do good for a while. He would just stay clean and sober. And then he would fall off the cliff. And when he would fall, he would fall. And he even, a couple of times, even went to like his in-laws' house, like his wife's parents' house, and stole medicine out of their medicine cabinet. And then that came out. And then we had to have film a session about that. And then they got a lockbox, and we thought it was solved. And then a few months later, happened again. Had to have another family session about that. And, I'm trying, he'll do good for a while. And then finally, after one of these big falls, his wife was just like, that's it. Like, I'm done. I'm out. And so he has to like leave. He has to get his own apartment. And she's still coming to therapy, and he's still coming. So they haven't really given up, but he's out. And at this point, I'm like, they're done. Like, I didn't really give up on him getting sober, but I thought like his wife is done. Like, and honestly, I couldn't blame her. Like, as much as I was in his corner, like if I was married to him and he was doing that to me, like, because, she had these kids to think about. And at this point, it was like, am I putting my kids in jeopardy? Like, am I doing the wrong thing? So I didn't really blame her, but I felt bad for him at the same time. And then all during that time, I feel like inadequate as the counselor, because I feel like everyone's like looking at me to fix this problem. And then right about then, when I'm pretty much just like, I got nothing, then he starts doing good. And then him and the wife start talking, and then he moves back in. And Jeff has been doing very, very excellent for several years now. Doing great. His business is doing great. His family's doing great. I still see him every now and then just for maintenance. And he comes in and he talks to me about what's going on in his family and what's going on in his business. And he turns it around. And that is what keeps me doing this kind of work, because people do turn it around. But I'm telling you, it's usually like just past the point when even me, like I'm like the most hopeful person. I'm like their defense attorney. I'm like their lawyer. I'm like the one that has their back when everybody else doesn't give up on them. And when it gets to the point where I'm just like in my head, I'm like, I don't think this is going to make it. Then they make it and they turn around. And I see this time and time and time again. So I know as a family member, when your loved one is struggling, you're struggling too. And you're on this roller coaster with them. And you're thinking, like, good gosh, how many chances should I give them? And I don't have a solid answer. Like, I don't have a number answer for you as far as how many chances you should give them. Because I can promise you it takes a lot of trial and error. Like, it's going to take more than once or twice for a person to figure it out. Sometimes it takes 4 or 5 times. Sometimes it takes 8 or 9 times. But most of the time, I mean, with the families that engage with us, the person usually almost always does turn it around. It's just about what's going to happen in between and how much can the family tolerate. Now, as a family member, if you will have healthy boundaries and you will try really hard not to get on the roller coaster with them, you'll be able to tolerate their ups and downs more, because you're not on that roller coaster with them. And if you just keep your steady and you hold your boundaries and you do like the things like we teach you on these videos and in the invisible intervention and in your sessions and stuff, you hold your steady, you can tolerate as they figure it out. So you'll be able to give them more chances if you keep yourself healthy. Now, there is a time where no matter what, no matter how much I'm rooting for my client and how much I want someone to turn it around, where there are some situations where the family really does need to just sort of like back off. Maybe not forever, but they need to get some space and distance between them and this person for a while. And I have a video, which I'll link up here at the end, that will tell you exactly what those circumstances are. And they're big, major, like these are no-go areas. It's one thing to hang in there with somebody while they figure it out and they try this and they try that. But there are some things that really you can't tolerate or deal with. And like I said, I have I have a video about that, and I'll link it up here for you. So in just a minute, I am going to answer a couple of questions from you guys. And last week, we did this really cool thing where I let somebody, one of the live viewers, those of you that are watching out, come on with me, which means you'll be on live, and talk to me for a few minutes about your situation and get some advice. And so I'm going to put that offer out again today. I don't know how many people will want to do that because it will put your face on here with me. And so that's public. It's on YouTube. So be aware that is the case when that happens. And it works just like I'll send you a link and you just click the link. And as long as you have decent internet reception, you can do it from your phone or your laptop. You should be fine. So if you want to do that, what I want you to do is in the chat, put a number from 1 to 100. And then I've got like a random number picker app on my phone, and we will take the person that gets closest to the number that the phone picks. And that's how we'll do that. It worked good last time. And so if there's anybody that wants to do that this time, we will do that again. In the meantime, I'm going to answer a couple of questions. I actually have a question here from Alexandria, who said that she was in Australia, so she won't be able to be on the live stream, but we'll be watching it in the replay. So let me answer Andrea's question. Alexandria says, I just moved out after my wife relapsed again. When she relapses, she mistreats me. Last time, police took out a restraining order. I love her, but how can I tell if she's truly committed to change? And this is actually, Alexandra, this is like the perfect question for today's topic, right? Because it's like, how many chances should I give this person? And I can tell that you love your wife and that you want this to work, but some things are happening that are going across the line. Because if the police took out a restraining order, that tells me that there's some major like safety issue happening, and that there's some abuse happening, domestic violence stuff happening. And that's one of the things, like if you watch the video, that's the out of bounds things. When someone is literally putting your safety or your kid's safety at risk, those are the no-go zones. And if you can't be safe in the house with someone, or your kids can't be safe in the house with someone, then that's one of those no-go zones. So you said on here, Alexandria, that you moved out, which probably was the right thing to do. Now, I'm not even telling you that you have to give up completely on this person, because what you're asking me is, how do I know if she's truly committed to change? If it gets to the point where you have to like ask the person to move out, or you move out as in like you're not living with them anymore, a lot of times people want to know, like, how will I know if it's okay to like move back in with them or let them move back? And what I would say to you, Alexandria, is it has to be more than just something that the person says about how they're going to change. It's not because I think they don't mean it, but what you're going to want to see is a good, decent amount of time where the person is consistently has made that change. So not when they're talking about what they're going to do, not when they're promising what they're going to do, but when they have shown you what they're going to do. Because if it's gotten bad to the point where you can't live with the person anymore, then that tells me you've given a lot of chances and you're not giving up, but they need to show some time of doing well. And I would say probably a few months at least of time of doing well. Because a lot of times people will make the promises, I'll do this, I'll go to 90 meetings in 9 days, I'll never do that again. And then the family like lets them back in before they've even done any of the change. They've just said they're going to do the change. So that's the line that I would hold, Alexandria. We had a couple of questions in our family Facebook group this week. So I thought I would answer those for you here too, because they're kind of related. One of the questions in our family Facebook group was about, is it okay to leave your kid with their other parent if their other parent has an addiction? And what I would say is, if that other parent is actively using drugs and alcohol and they're intoxicated, then even if you feel like, well, that's their parent, they should have to do it. If you know that they're not capable of doing it, then I would not do it. Because you guys know I talk on here all the time, like I'm all about giving chances. I'm all about being positive and being a cheerleader. But the safety lines, those are the lines you don't cross. So if ask yourself this question: if you hired a babysitter and they came over and they were in the state that your spouse is in, would you leave the babysitter there? If the answer is no, then I wouldn't, even if it is their parent. And I know that may be hard and inconvenient, and it may make things much more difficult, but it's one of those things that that's just really important. So that's the answer to that question. And another one was from our family group was, how do you help someone who's addicted, who's engaging in criminal behavior? And I'm not going to be able to answer this question super good because I don't know what the criminal behavior was, because my first thought when I got this question is pretty much anybody I've ever treated that has an active addiction is engaging in some level of criminal behavior. Now, obviously, there are levels of criminal behavior, right? I'm not, none of it's good. I'm not saying like any of it's okay. But the problem with this question is like, what do you mean by that? Like, do you mean my kid is 18 and they're drinking alcohol? Do you mean my husband is selling meth out of the house? Because it's really two very big different things. So as far as how to help them, it's the same. There's nothing different that I would tell you about how to like help and support this person that's any different than anything else I tell you guys on these videos. The boundary that you hold to protect yourself might be slightly different if their criminal behavior is putting you or like the other people in the house at risk. Then you may have to put a stronger boundary, like you may have to be like, I can't live with you or something like that. But it doesn't mean the way you interact with them has to be a whole lot differently. Hope that helps. All right, let's see here. I'm checking to see if we have any numbers. Oh, we do have a few numbers. Okay, good. All right, I'm going to do the random number thing on the phone, and you guys help me figure out which one of the numbers is closest, okay? All right, let's see. Here we go. Shake the phone. We're going to get a number. Supposed to just shake it. Oh, here it goes. Okay, the number is 2. It's a little bitty number. All right, who is our person that's closest to the number 2? I'm going to get our link ready. Let's see here. See, MD was 18. I'm just scanning through. You guys got to tell me who was the closest here. Oh, 13. Custom attitude was 13. I think 13 is our lowest number. Am I right, you guys? All right. Number 13, which says custom attitude. I think it is you. I'm going to put a link here in the chat, and all you have to do is hit the link, and then I'll let you join in the live, and we'll talk about your situation, see if we can come up with something. Yesterday, I was talking to somebody for a family consult, and I said, we're going to figure this out together. And I didn't know this, but the person told me, he's like, oh, they say in Al-Anon, like, that's not a thing, figuring out things. That's not something you should do. And I was like, really? That's the thing? Because that's what I do. I'm like, no, we're going to figure out the situation. Like, wherever you're at, figure out the next move and how to get to the next point. Because, guys, I tell you guys all the time, you're not powerless. There are things you can do to help yourself or to help a loved one. Here's my rule about it. If you're still alive, you're still in the game. So that's where I'm at with it. All right, let's see if we get our person join us. We're going to give custom attitude a couple more minutes. And then if they're not in here, then we'll go with the next number closest, which I think might have been the 18 number, MD. All right. All right, MD, I think that you are the next closest number. Oh, custom attitude says yes. Okay. So you're still here with us. See if you can click the link in the chat and you'll be on with us and we'll get to talk. And if you can't, or you change your mind or something, then we'll let MD go. Kim says, My loved one seems to be in the contemplation stage, but regresses back to habits that cross my boundaries. I'm struggling to keep my boundaries. Usage has increased after counseling session. Um, Kim, I wish I knew like what you mean when you say their behavior is crossing your boundaries. I wish I knew exactly what you meant by that. What I can tell you is that in the contemplative stage, there is a lot of back and forth. That's kind of when they do a lot of that trial and error, and that's when they'll sort of be doing good and then not good and back and forth. So it's not uncommon for that to happen, and it's not uncommon for people's use to be more after a counseling session or after an AA meeting or anything else like that. I know that sounds crazy, but it's part of the process, unfortunately. All right. Okay, Custom Attitude says I can't do it. MD, if you want to click that link, I will put it up here again. Since you were the second closest, then we'll put you on here with us. All right. In the meantime, while we're waiting, I'll see if I can take another question. Cecilia says, my husband sometimes gets angry or offended when I arrange for childcare for our son as a precaution due to his history of drinking incidences with him. How should I respond to his being offended? I could kind of see that, Cecilia, and I get it, and that's kind of a dicey situation, but it's one of those situations where it's like the safety thing has to be first. So I would say, like, I get it, but I have to look out for our kid. And if your husband really wants to be able to do that, then I would probably put some kind of accountability thing in place, like a sober link or some other kind of breathalyzing device or something. Maybe not forever, but long enough so you can build trust to know that he's going to make the right choice. But that's a good question. All right, we have Mickey. Hey, Mickey.
Hi.
I've seen your initials for so long, I didn't even know you were Mickey. I've seen you at MD for like a year at least.
Yeah, I've been following you for at least that long. And obviously, since I'm coming on now, it's gotten to the point that your session today is exactly what I'm thinking is enough. My my brother just died last week from alcohol. He literally drank himself to death at 48 years old. And my husband was with me in the hospital, watched him die. He also has an alcohol use disorder. He hates the word alcoholic. And we've been going around and around and around for years. And I'm not just blowing smoke, but finding your videos was a huge help. I tried Al-Anon. It wasn't for me. It was more about trying to get me to leave him, and I didn't want to leave him. I wanted to help him. And so I don't even know how I stumbled across your video, but it was the best thing.
Well,
but now after seeing my brother die, I'm kind of thinking, I don't know if I can do this with my husband. I can't watch him continue to kill himself slowly.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, like, can I ask you some questions? Is that okay?
Sure.
And if I ask you anything that you don't want to talk about on live, then you can just say pass or whatever. Okay.
At this point, I think that's
okay.
We're past that point.
Okay. You said that your husband doesn't like the word alcoholic, which is fine.
Right.
But it makes me think, well, I guess the question is does he feel like he has an alcohol problem? Even if he doesn't like the word, does he feel like it's a problem?
It depends on the day, really. He actually signed up for your program. Okay. He had a really bad binge, and we actually signed up for your program. His idea, I had sent him a couple of videos from you saying, yes, you can do it by yourself. He's a professional, like you talk about all the time. And so I think they get in their head that they're different, that their situation is different. All of this stuff that you've already heard. And he started your program. He did it for about a week, and then he stopped and started drinking again. And then I even said, I don't know what else to do. I don't know how much more I have left. I want to support you. I do support you. I know you can do it because you've stopped for months at a time, and everything that you've said, I've tried all of it. He is not violent. He is not aggressive. He's not, dangerous. He's one of those highly functional alcoholics, and I don't use that name with him because he doesn't like it, and it doesn't matter to me what the name is. You have a problem with drinking. That's all that matters.
Right.
But at this, and the roller coaster, it did get better. But the the thing with my brother, and I really thought, wow, he's going to see him in that hospital bed, hooked up to all of this stuff. He was in the room when he died, and the very next day, when we got home, he started drinking again. And after saying all these things, he said he has all the change talk. He has all the change talk, and he will say, I don't want to do that to you. I don't want to put my family through that. Seeing just what you went through with him, he has all the talk. And I think it's been a couple of years at least 1 year with the techniques that I've been learning from you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even a little more than that. But even before that, me going through all the craziness, with stalking him and trying to control everything that he does, and, all of the other stuff that goes along with it. I've already done all of that. So your thing today, your subject today was kind of really hitting home for me, because just last night,
Mm-hmm.
I lost it again. I think because I'm so emotional, I couldn't keep myself together.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so bad when he got home last night that I acted crazy again. I went right back on that roller coaster, and I just, had a flash for a moment that said, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep watching you kill yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now I'm wondering, do I have any left in me to keep doing it?
Sometimes when people ask me, like, should I kick them out kind of question, what I say to that is, when you're done, you'll be so done you won't need to ask me.
Right.
You'll know. You won't need to call me. You won't care if I told you not to, because you're done. So
Right.
you're probably not done yet, but you might be getting close. Like, you're getting where we're at, and I don't blame you. And the story that you're telling me does sound exactly like the stories, like what happens usually with the clients that we see. There's a lot of this, and I'm hanging in there, and it's usually like right when I think, okay, this spouse is done. Like, I think, because usually that's, it's like the spouse or the parent, like, they're done. That's usually right when they turn around. The good thing that I hear is he is having change talk, and not only is he having change talk, but he's trying some things, right? Like, he had the program, he's had times periods over, and he is saying to you, I don't want to be like that. So not only does he recognize the alcohol's a problem, but he's recognizing how it's affecting you, and he cares about that, which tells me you have been working my program, because when the family member acts crazy, they don't care if they're hurting you. They're trying to hurt you because they're just mad at you. So I know you're working the program right, Mickey.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to let him see any kind of emotion, based on what you're telling me, I would let him see your sadness and not your anger. Because I think, based on what you're telling me, in his heart, he does want to change, and he doesn't want to treat you that way. When you show the anger, not that the anger is not warranted and valid, it is, and I'd feel angry too, and I'd probably say angry things. It's just, he's just going to be defensive. But if you show your sadness, I think he's probably pretty close to being done with this thing. And I'm not saying that would be like the end all be all, but I think that would get through to his heart faster. Yeah. So just let him, you don't have to tell him, just let him see how sad you are, because he's probably pretty close to figuring it out. And even if he doesn't like want to go to treatment or something, because I say a lot of the adults, especially adult alcoholics we see, don't end up having to go to treatment, but maybe he'll talk to someone, or maybe he'll do like something that's maybe more interactive, if that would help, because he's pretty close. And I feel like if he was talking to someone about it, it would speed it up.
He's gone to a couple of people. He actually talked to our family doctor at one point about Suboxone, one of the two. I know there's two medications, and one of the doctors actually said, "I don't think your drinking is bad enough that you need that." And which kind of made me a little crazy, because I was like, why would somebody come to you and say something like that if they didn't really need something like that? And it was horrible to hear.
Yeah, because
you know
that'll set you back. Oh, that'll set you back 6 months right there, or if not
yeah,
longer. Because
yeah,
now the
because he felt
doctor's
like,
gonna put the stamp on me.
yep, the
It'll take
doctor
forever to get
said,
past that. Oh,
uh-huh.
I would just be so upset about that. Yeah, and, well, a couple of thoughts. I think maybe Suboxone is for opiate use disorder, and you're
So
telling me
it must have been the other
maybe
one
it's like
then.
Vivitrol or something.
Vivid, yeah,
Doesn't even matter.
right.
I have this saying. My saying is, and just for everybody listening, if someone tells you that they are an alcoholic, they're an addict, never tell them that they're not. Because let me promise you, they have thought about that long and hard. Even if you've never seen them do anything, if they are telling you that, it's true. Because usually the person is the last one to know it, and they usually know it long before they say it to someone. So if someone says something to you like that, please don't tell them they're not. Because I have clients that do that all the time. Like, I'm working them through these stages, and then they finally like admit to their friend that they've stopped drinking because they're whatever. And then the friend says, "What? I drink twice as much as you. Like, you don't have a problem." Like, and then it's like backwards. I
Yep.
hate that. It's like, ooh, I hate
Yep.
that.
That's exactly what happened. And then, he's tried counseling a couple of times, and one of it's he hasn't connected with the right person, I think, because I know that counseling is a personal thing. You have to be able to connect to somebody.
That's right.
And I also think, because of his profession, that he would only do it like online, and I try to look for positives in everything. And a positive that came out of COVID is there's so much more available
That's
through
right. Yeah.
virtual, through Zoom, all of that stuff now. So it's out there, but it's really hard to find. And right now, I just think he's spiraling, and he's right back to asking, who am I hurting? How am I hurting you? I don't understand how I'm hurting you. And of course I said, do I just stand in front of you and cry and act like a crazy person all the time? Do you really not see how you're hurting me?
Right.
And it just, I was really, this morning I'm upset that I came out of my own character again, that I reacted that way. And I almost feel like, and I'm trying not to, but I almost feel like, oh great, now I just added to and set him back, and we can, now we're gonna start this all over again. And just wondering if I when do you say, I guess you're right. I had a friend tell me the same thing. When your belly's full, you'll walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a good man. When he's so completely different, and you've said this too, how everybody says, they're such a good person, and he really is. He has the biggest heart, the kindest man. He doesn't have a negative thing to say about anybody. And I think part of that is part of his problem too, is he never lets his emotions out. So he
Yeah.
has these other issues that he started using alcohol to treat: his anxiety, to treat his uncomfortable feelings. And at this point, I just, I don't even know what's left. I mean, I felt like when he finally agreed. Well, he didn't even agree. It wasn't even my idea. It was just where I said, okay, last night was really bad. And I've found him in the car on the side of the road sometimes, and had to drive, his daughter and I pick him up, and I drive him home. And it was like, you really took a chance last night. That was horrible. And he would be the kind of person that his heart is so big, it would kill him if he hurt somebody while he was driving. So he is a wonderful man, or I wouldn't still be here, trying to fight for him. And I just don't know where else to go. I mean, he volunteered to do your program and then ended it. And then he asked me to order him a book while we were in the hospital watching my brother, Sober in Today's World or something like that.
Okay.
So he does have the change talk, but it's like he gets on these binges where all of a sudden everything that he had been talking, everything he had been saying, it's
Goes
just
away.
gone.
Right. Yeah. That's I've seen that so many times, and it's like, how can one day you get it and one day you don't get it? Like when people just like don't get it when they first see me, like that doesn't bother me because I just sort of don't expect them to. But when they got it and then they lose it, I'm just like, what? And I'm glad you said what you said about him saying like, how's this even hurting you? Because when you were saying earlier, like he's kind of like this functional person and this and that. That's my thoughts. Like he's telling himself like, I don't even know why she's upset. Like, I'm making money, I'm taking care of the house, I like do my responsibilities. Like, she should be glad. She's got to get, that's what he's telling himself in his head.
Right.
That's right. And that makes it last longer. The fact that he's functioning in all the other areas of his life, it makes it harder to see the problem. And then also alcohol, and you've probably heard me say this, Mickey, is like alcohol has a worser kind of denial because they literally don't remember. Whereas like people that are addicted to other things, they're in denial. They may not want to call it addiction and they may not want to admit it to you, but they remember that they stole this or that they did that. And the alcoholic person, they just don't remember how they acted. They
So
literally
that makes so
don't
much more
know.
sense. He gets up the next morning and acts like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't, he couldn't walk across the room last night. And I was like, I thought he was pretending. Like, you're just pretending that nothing happened, and it did, and I'm hurting, and you just go on like nothing happened.
Because they don't remember. And what bits and pieces they do remember is just sort of clouded by the fact that they felt good. So if they, or, they felt intoxicated, I guess, really. And with that, and that's specific, like I said, to alcohol, the denial tends to be just different, I think, a little different than some of the other kinds because they don't remember. And it's like they're not seeing what you're seeing. And so most of the ones that I see, they tell me that they really feel like their spouse is overreacting. Like, I don't know why she makes this big deal about it. That's what they tell me, like over and over and over again, because they don't see it.
Yep. Yep. That's pretty much what I get too. And also because, our kids don't want to talk to him about it. They're older. Two of them still live here, but they're older. And they don't want to talk to him about it. And so I will pass that along, and so I just take the brunt of it. It almost is like he tells himself, I'm just making it up. Like, this isn't coming from them. They're not hurt by anything. They'd come and say something to me, and it isn't the case. The shame thing is there too, I think, because he'll be very upset that he doesn't have the relationship that he wants with them, and then he acts like he doesn't understand why. And so I gently try and say, well, every time you drink, it just pushes them away, or it damages the progress that you did make with them, and you just have to keep trying. And I think, like you've said before, that shame that he feels, I think he stuffs it down. Like, that's what he's done with his feelings for forever. He doesn't let them out, because that's the age, that's the era. You're a man, you don't show how you feel. And
Mhm.
he kind of got stuck in that for a long, long time. And the only time that he does let any emotion out is when he's been drinking, or if I talk to him about it.
Mhm.
And one time I pushed and pushed and pushed when I was on my crazy roller coaster before I found your videos.
Mhm.
And he was actually yelling, and that was a first for him. He doesn't yell. He's not violent. It's not his character at all. And I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
The youngest is 18.
Okay, so they're like young adults.
Yes.
Okay, because that was another question we had recently is about like somebody asked, should I have the kids tell them if they're young? And I usually say to that, like if they're young kids, if the kid wants to tell them, let them tell them. Like don't interfere with that. But sometimes parents will be like, you should tell your dad this or that, and that's puts them in a bad place. But it also, like what you're saying, Mickey, is like if you're the deliverer of the news, they don't believe you a lot of times,
Right.
or they say, well, you're just pitting them against me.
Yep. Heard that
They don't
too.
really feel that way. You're just telling them these stories, and you're just telling them I'm bad, and it's your fault.
Yep. I kind of let them decide how they want to approach it, and pretty much everybody is just given up on them except for me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really sad because it's the alcohol, it's not him, it's not who he is, and he can beat it. I just don't know how to get that through to him.
Well, I think what you said earlier was pretty powerful to me when you said it's not his character. Because number one, it just speaks to me about how you feel about him as a person, that you really respect him and that you really do love him. And I would communicate that to him and help him see that the alcohol makes him not live up to his own integrity, because he sounds like somebody who those kind of things are important to. And
Mm-hmm.
if he doesn't want to call it alcoholism, who cares? If he doesn't want to say this, but if he could just even see that it makes him be the opposite of who he really is, that may be enough. But he's kind of all over it. He's sort of like, he's all right at there at the thing. I can tell.
Okay. Is there any advice at this point? Do I just keep doing the same thing, or like recently you've been talking about the sober link, and when I said to him, I can't keep watching you kill yourself. um he woke up feeling very guilty the next morning, this morning,
Mm-hmm.
and he left his driver's license on the counter. So there's,
So
it
he's
may be
realizing
something that he's
something.
open to. Is it if he doesn't choose this himself, if I say to him, would you consider doing this? Is that me interfering? Because,
No,
okay.
no. If you say, when the next time he has a moment, and if he's in one of those moments today, then today, that you can tell he's kind of has that moment of clarity, then I would say, would you be willing to do this? And explain to him what it is, and say, for like 3 months, and then we can reevaluate. If he says yes, then yes. To me, the question isn't, do you want to? The question is, are you willing to? No one wants to do any of it. But
Right,
if they
right.
if they don't say hell no, then I'll take that as a yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, because he had we, put things in place. I had let him come up with the ideas so that he doesn't make me the bad guy, and he made sure that he doesn't carry money on him. He started
He's done a
traveling a
lot
different way
for
to
him.
work.
Like, he's trying a lot of
y-
things,
you
okay?
know, he has been trying, and it just is, like I said, the losing my brother to the exact same thing just kind of pushed it
It brings
a
it
little.
home, like the
Yeah.
stubbornness. Mhm.
Yeah, and the fact that he saw it, and the next day, you know changed his mind, I guess, and was like, that's not going to be me. He had to be doing so much worse than I was, and he talked himself right out of it. And it just I kind of went, you're not going to stop, you're never going to stop. And I backslid. I
Right, 'cause the seeing your brother scared you. Of course it did. Would me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have the conversation with him about the sober link and he doesn't want to do it, then I would say, okay, I understand that. Would you be willing, if we have another really bad incident, would you be willing to do it then? Because a lot of times they'll say, yeah, okay, like if this doesn't work, then I'll do it. So I would probably ask it, and if he doesn't want to do it, then I would set that as a contingency. That way you kind of have it, a plan already like in place. That's what I
Right. And I was thinking, I'm going to say the exact same thing you did. This isn't to catch you. It's to help you put things in place to stop you when you have a weak moment. And, that's what we keep trying. And he's very clever. He's very clever because he's left all of his cards. He has no cash with him, but he still had his driver's license. So he could go into the bank and get money out that way, So he's when they at one point I was like, you might as well just take all of this stuff with you because you're going to do it anyway. And when he chose to leave all of it,
Right.
I was like,
Different.
okay, that's a good
Right.
sign. I'm going to take it. I will take it. It
Mhm.
was his idea. I didn't push it. You can't make me the bad guy. And so, I mean, it has been working. The techniques that you've given, it has been working. And one of the things that hit home too, was when you said it's not fair, but we end up taking the majority of it on us. But if we want our loved ones, it's just popped back in my head. That's why I'm repeating your own
Mhm.
words. But that it's going to come, if we want our loved ones to recover, then
Mhm.
we're going to have to do some of the work too. And I'm okay with that because he's worth it. He is
Mhm.
a good man. And there are lots of people, like, I don't judge anyone for having any weaknesses. And, and they come in all different types,
Mhm.
food, everything can be an addiction anymore.
Right.
And, I don't, but I think he feels very judged by it. And that's the one behavior that I can't, I repeat sometimes exactly what you say to make sure I'm trying to not, but to make sure that I'm not making things worse. And it still sometimes I think he just gets defensive and he feels like I'm judging him. Oh, well, you're the one that likes to use that label, and I'm like, I don't need a label for you. I that was something that he's a bring things up from the past kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I said that probably 2 years ago. I think you're an alcoholic. I think we need to face that there's some problems, and we need things to change. And he hasn't let that go. Like, it hurt him so badly, feeling like I judged him using that word. And I haven't used it since he responded that way, but he'll still throw that out. And you know it's funny because the things I know that you are legit. If anybody else is watching for the first time, because it's like you bring things right out of my own life and you describe them in these videos that I watch when you're on. That's why every Thursday I have a notification come up to let me know
Yeah.
that you're on. And it has helped. And if nothing else, sometimes just to calm, just to say, I'm not alone. There's
Mhm.
everybody else out there.
Well, I have two things to say about him saying that you said he was alcoholic. First thing I'd say is, if that's all he's got, you're doing pretty good. So I'd be like, I'm winning this. So I'd say that means you've really been doing good about like keeping your composure. Second thing I would say, and this comes up a lot. In fact, a spouse said this to me yesterday. Is like she said or did something like 2 years ago, and her spouse was saying it. But alcohol makes you relive all your hurts and resentments, and you play it over and over and over again in your head, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So they don't let anything go. So
Oh,
some captain 20 years ago, and they'll be telling it to me like it was yesterday. Now, once they quit drinking, that gets better pretty quick. But they just you drink and then you relive it, these bad memories, these hurts, and that's why I say people that are drinking to make their anxiety better or trauma better. Oh my gosh, like there's nothing worse you could be doing. You literally like playing it, and as you're playing it, it's growing. Because it's like you tell yourself the story so many times, and it gets worse every time you tell yourself the story.
that's yeah. That makes sense too, because he gets very withdrawn. He doesn't. He'll sometimes he's his version of angry, which is not a normal person's version. Not my version of angry.
Mm-hmm.
But where he'll snap about something and he just doesn't. Everybody's human. We all normally will snap at somebody or had a bad day, or everybody he just doesn't. But if he's drinking, that's how it'll come out in him. Like
Right.
he'll sometimes snap about something that he would normally never do.
That sounds really similar to the client I was telling you about, this Jeff client at the beginning. He's very similar to that. And with that person, it wasn't so much, I mean, that he didn't even want to say it, but he couldn't even recognize his own feelings. I'd literally say, man, if that happened to me, I'd be thinking this. And he'd say, oh, no. I'm like, are you sure? Like, I had to like teach him how to recognize his own feelings and wants and needs so he could address them, so he wouldn't let them build up.
Yep.
I would say,
I
okay,
think that's
this. I think you need to say this when you get home today. You need, and it just took a lot of like coaching him to do that, because he didn't want to say it, but he also had stuffed it so long he didn't recognize it. He didn't
and
even
that's
know
exactly
that's how he was feeling, or something he needed, or something.
I think that's exactly what it is with him. I mean, some of the things he's told me from when he was growing up, it wasn't horrible things, but it was things that I think impacted him. He never wants to hurt anyone's feelings or even make them feel slightly uncomfortable. And so much so that he takes what he thinks somebody else will feel and feel it himself, and I'm like, that wouldn't have, like, I mean, crazy little things like how he prefers his coffee. He won't even say, "Oh yeah, I'll take cream and sugar, just light cream, right? However you bring it to me is fine."
Right. Yeah. So that's definitely, because it's probably playing into too why he doesn't like the label, because in his mind it's like, I try so hard. I'm like, I do the right thing. Like, I always put my needs on the back burner. And he's probably thinking, like, this is the one thing I do for me. Like, this is the only thing if I were in his head, I just imagine. I'm just guessing.
That is one of the things he said.
Loop that he's thinking in there.
Yep. Right. That's one of the exact things that he said. This is the only thing. This is it. This is all
I don't ask anything else. So
yeah.
Right. And so that's part of his sort of depriving himself, and then he's using that to justify. And that those are all things that would probably need to be like addressed in some kind of counseling or something, just to teach him how to not feel bad about asking for what he needs, and him recognize how that leads into this. And it doesn't even have to be huge giant stuff from childhood. It's just like regular stuff in work, in marriage, that you need or want or upset about. And if you just don't get your needs met, then it's going to come out some way or another.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly what I on the way home from the hospital, when he was talking about that, we talked about it. And of course, this was before I saw your 10 minutes, don't talk for more than 10 minutes. So we talked and I was kind of letting him do more of the talking, but I did say, I'm hoping that you will express your feelings a little more, because I feel like you don't. And, that's where a lot of that came from, him saying that, I don't think everything we think needs to be said. And I said, you're right. Everything doesn't need to be, but your feelings matter. And, if it's, I just think that maybe at some point you felt like you have to keep it all bottled up. And when you can't take it anymore, you get that desire to drink, because you can't control it yourself anymore. And so you drink, and maybe you numb it down.
He's trying to like pour the alcohol to like keep it down.
Yeah.
If one of the things that I would probably tell him if he were sitting in my office is, I'd say, he's right. Most of our thoughts we don't need to say. I call that the inside voice. You don't need to say every grumpy thought that you have.
Yep.
But when something is going to continue to happen, and is really bothering you, like if somebody you met once said something that just offended you, and you're never going to see them again, it's not worth fighting about, right?
Right.
But every time you see your mother-in-law, she says this one thing to you, and it makes you crazy.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to keep happening, then you need to address it, because it's not just I was just grumpy that day, or they rubbed me wrong. I mean, it's like going to keep coming at you until something gives.
Yeah.
So that's how I sort of decide what's worth addressing, and what's worth just letting go. And that's my formula for figuring it out. Yeah.
That's kind of like what I told him too. I said, I'm going to use a really minuscule example. if I kept leaving the cap off of the toothpaste over and over and over, it's a small thing. It's just a tiny little thing. It's no big deal, right? Who cares? But if it keeps bothering you over and over and over, give me a chance. Just say, hey, would you mind putting the cap back on the toothpaste? And I may go, I never thought about that. But in his mind, he was like, I can just do it myself. And I'm like, yeah, but what, and this is just an example of you're saying that your feelings aren't valid. You're telling yourself, just deal with it and don't give anyone else a chance to make something different or even realize that they've done something that bothers you. So I mean, and at one point he was just obsessed with getting to the reason of why he was drinking and why he was drinking and why he was drinking. There has to be a reason. And once I figure it out, then I can.
I'm like, I think you might be all over it. Like he doesn't get his needs met very well.
Right.
And he's pouring alcohol because he's trying to be the good guy.
Yep.
He's trying to do the right things all the time, and he's shoving it all down. That would be my guess. Like, I obviously have never met him, but that's got to be at least a piece of it. Because
I think it's a pretty good assessment for never having met him. But yeah, that was one of the things that we've there's been a lot of talk, and it changed a lot after I started listening to your videos and not listening to some other advice that I had gotten. And it definitely changed things. The tone of how you approach, the way that I approached him, it matters. It just does. And shaming doesn't work, and guilting doesn't work, and yelling doesn't work. And it was just one of those things that you made so many good points that I have seen progress. I have seen a lot of progress.
Right. And I can tell it just hearing from you, because y'all have pretty decent dialogue about it, and he is saying a lot of change talk, and he doesn't want to hurt you. So I can tell that the things are in place, and he's pretty close. I think he's going to turn the corner. And if he could stop drinking, maybe the sober link, and if he could learn how to like get his needs met, I think that would be a really good combination. And it may be that you have to like train him to ask for what he needs. Like with the client I had, I would literally have to say, like, are you sure you're not feeling this? Because I would feel this way. I don't have to like, or give him multiple choice.
That's a good idea.
Like this or this or this, or and it's almost like if they can start to say it and then nothing bad happens, and then they kind of get used to it, and it's just like a skill.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there, the program that we did, I think we did somewhere in the middle, it didn't have any, or at least I think it didn't have any sessions, like an actual with someone like you. Is there an option for that? Like, because he's also, he uses the same thing that I've heard you talk about, the excuses that professionals use, like they don't want their work to find out. And it's a legitimate, it's a legitimate reason. But at some point I've even said, I don't care about your job anymore. Your life is more important to me. But
most of the time, once people get sober and they're doing well, then they get more okay with talking about it, because they're already doing better. But while you're still in it, not only do you not want your work to know you have this problem, but you're still in it, so you still feel terrible. You know what I'm saying? So, right. Well, usually people, once they get better, they eventually, I call it coming out of the recovery closet. They come out of the recovery closet, and they get kind of open with it. So, yeah. Thank you so much for being brave and joining us. It takes a lot of guts to get on here, and just to get on here and talk about anything, let alone like these really hard things.
Well, guts or desperation.
Okay. Either one. The desperation. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody who joined us. We will be back here live next Thursday, and I'll put the video up for you guys about when to walk away, the big like no-go zones. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.